as they were yesterday in Chicago, but it's still pretty darn cold to be expected, I guess, for December football.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, I didn't actually hear too much on Corley in the Senior Bowl, so I love hearing that his route tree is expanding. Yeah, to me, it's another solid play that you want to get into the building. I know he can return kicks and punts, so he's going to be on the roster every game, and you just figure out a way to get the ball in this guy's hand. Next couple of years, get his route running, route tree expanded, and he could be an absolute gamer for us.
This wide receiver class is so deep with guys we didn't even talk about that. We talked about maybe Javon Baker.
No, can you actually tell me about Javon Baker? I haven't studied him, and I know you really like him, and everything I've heard is really good.
He's a touchdown machine. His ball tracking skills, they reminded me last year when I watched the Senior Bowl last year, it was Jaden Reed was that guy. He was just really explosive, really quick. But when the ball was in the air, he almost always managed to come down with it. He could control his body, and he would make those plays. That's Javon Baker this year. Really electric. Whenever the ball is in the air, quarterback goes back pass, great chances coming down with it. I think these guys are really excited.
Nice. I'm going to watch the tapes right after the talk.
That could be intimidating when you think about it.
The goal was the best center in this game. I had three guys in mind, KPJ, Zach Frazier, Virginia, Cedric Van Ron, Montron didn't show up with last month's crash. I don't know the details there. And then Zach Frazier was injured, not clear for contact, but did some positional work. Meanwhile, KPJ stood out. Looked like a surefire. That kind of separated himself. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think you nailed it. KPJ, I think he's a star in the making. I think he could go as high as 20 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who need a center. And I know in mock draft he's not nearly as high, but come draft day, this guy is absolutely going to go that high. And I know a lot of people say, why draft a center in the first round? It's not as important. And you just got to throw him a base. This guy is so good, he's so powerful, so strong, but he's incredibly quick and he's nasty. And for him to come into the Senior Bowl, I think at 330, and to still 335, I mean, and still have this explosiveness and this athleticism, that's out of the world as far as centers are concerned. And you just don't see this combination of size, athleticism, and then just pure nastiness. Yeah, man, I would absolutely trade that for behind 220 and draft this kid and be happy.
Trade down.
Yeah, absolutely. Day one starter. And, I mean, hey, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you're a day one starter as a center. When you play 10, 15 years in this league, you might be getting a gold jacket. So Zach Frazier, I really like Zach Frazier. I think there's a lot to do with, it has a lot to do with him, his wrestling background, where he gets leverage and he really can get advantage of guys that are bigger than him. He can out-physical guys, he can out-technique guys. I really like it. The only concern, though, is the athleticism, how much we're going to ask him to move in the wide zone, in the duo, getting up on the linebackers. How well is he going to do against an athletic linebacker trying to flip his block? I know he's great at technique. Sometimes guys who are so good at technique, this kind of reminds me of Peter Skoronski from last year's draft. They almost tap out on technique, but there isn't as much physical side to them to really push that ceiling much higher. Then maybe you're going to get a day one starter from him. You're going to get a very good center. I question how is he a Pro Bowl center? Is he going to be one of the elite centers? But I think he's a very safe pick, and I do think he does. He fits enough, I think, with what we do. So I wouldn't be down on it.
It's right on there. That trade, I think it's really smart, really powerful. Maybe it's good player. I think athleticism is a question, especially when you're talking about Ryan Cole, the athletic profile of the players he drafts. Zach Fraser's a guy who's small a little bit, especially due to injury. I'd love to have him as a basic pick if we miss out on Fraser's guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Central Fan fans, I got to admit to this. I don't think I'm there yet on an opinion with him. I had a higher expectations from the hype when I went into started watching film on him. And there's nothing I really want to complain about, but there's not a lot that I'm overly excited about at the same time. For me, it's really hard to put into words. I think you do see some length, you do see some athleticism, you do see some size there. I think he's a relatively safe pick, but there are questions.
Yeah, he's going to tough stuff. He was tough on that. That's why I was last year too. He's tough on that. I can't really put a finger on him yet, but I feel like there's something missing in the game. And I really wanted to see him at the Senior Bowl. So when he didn't show up and JPJ dominated, they just kind of separated themselves. And I see he's a guy who heading into the process. He was supposed to come out last year. He stuck around another year. He's supposed to be the top center in this class. And I haven't seen him yet. So I just have some question marks with him, and I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up placing him. But he's definitely looks like he could be around the lead guy.
Right. Yeah, and I think a big part of it for me is when you watch JPJ and you watch Zach Frazier, and you watch them just do these moves on these guys where, you know, it's a duo block, and he's kicking the defensive tackle, hard side, and he's perfect technique, and then they shift up to the linebacker, and then just absolutely just destroy the linebacker. You see all this explosion, and you go to Central Fan Fan, and you're like, hey, you know, he got there. He's doing all right. Yeah, he's doing all right. Yeah, he's doing pretty good, you know. I don't know if it's just the grass was greener on the other side with these other two, and then missing out
right on
him, man, that's what I was hoping for. I wanted to see him compete in those one-on-one drills, because that's really what shows up. The Senior Bowl is so great with D-line versus O-line. You really can see, you know, how good people's techniques are. What are their counter moves? What are their counter moves on the counter moves? Can they handle strength? So yeah, it's still a question mark for me. So we'll just, I think I completely agree with you. There is kind of something missing, and I'd be happy with them. Maybe third, fourth round range.
I like that. Do you have any thoughts? I have like 3 other centers that I'm really looking at. Day 2, day 3 guys. Graham Barton from Duke. He started out at Duke as a center. Moved to left tackle just because he was the best player on the offensive line. Can do that in college. So most people expect him to shift back to center. I admittedly haven't watched enough football yet. We don't know where to place him, especially just Bo Limmer, the guy. I had him a day, probably a late round 3, maybe round 4 guy right now. I think he has some upside, and then the last guy on the list, Christian Haynes from Connecticut, the guy who plays guard, and I really like the guard. He kind of took Cedric Van Tron's spot in center, to be honest, and really held up well at the Senior Bowl. And I think I can see him moving up draft boards a lot. Do you have thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah, I do. With Barton, because I really do like Barton. I potentially see him actually more at left guard. I did see that he actually only played 5 games as a center, I believe. I just need to see more of him at center. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I don't necessarily draft him. If we're looking for a starting center, where a center is going to start within a year or 2 or something and get a stopgap, he's not something I would basically put all my money down on as a starting center just because I don't know. Having said that, I would love to take. He reminds me so much of Cody Whitehair coming out, where left tackle, moves the guard, but is athletic enough to play that center position. So I do really like Barton, and I would love to see something. If we have the pick, we trade back, getting JPJ and Barton as a center guard tandem, and let's say Kevin Jenkins, we don't resign him to injury. I know in 2 years we've got an out on Nate Davidson's contract at right guard. Yeah, we do have an out on that. So I do think that getting a young guard in relatively early in this draft is ideal. So I do like Martin. I just don't know if center is where he's going to be at home, but I'd be happy to draft him. He can play multiple positions, especially if we got injury problems with Jenkins or whatever else gets thrown our way. He's a great fit for me. Bo Lemire, I do like his case. I do see the strength issues. I think he does have good size, so I wonder if some of that strength issue is more technique than it is just him getting stronger. Because he is 6'4", 6'5", and he did play, I think, right guard for 3 years at guard, 1 year at center. I think Lemire is the guy who played 3 years at guard and 1 year at center. But I do, again, same with Spartan. You get a guy whose positional versatility is really good. I wouldn't lose a pick. I wouldn't want to draft him and start on day one. But I do like there is some upside to him. And then Christian Haynes, the other guy, I loved him at guard. And to hear that he is playing well at center, man, it's just like back to that, just positional versatility. I have Haynes a little bit higher than Lemire. And then also, I got
eventually go round 2. Do you have him lower than that? I thought he played so well. He could be a round 2 guy, maybe.
I do have him pretty high. I do like him in that round 2 range.
My board together. There's still a lot that can happen between now and the draft, but I think he plays well enough that he's probably in that area.
Yeah, I think he moved up. For me, I think he's moved up because he gives you that center potential. I do go into all of my draft stuff thinking Williams as a guard, and I really like him at guard. So
yeah, me too. He's one of those guys when you talked about adding a guard on day 2, and I was thinking, in mocks, I've added him in round 3 a lot as a guard. Right. With his position versatility, that's a guy I know they like, especially if you're going to be the first backup off the bench. They love it if you could play guard or center. So I think if we could lock down the center position somehow, like getting a JPJ or Zach Frazier and still adding a Christian Haynes, that would be ideal.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's 2 other guys that I do like in the later rounds, Tanner Bortolini and Kingsley Washington. I hope I'm saying that right.
I wasn't even
Tanner Bortolini, I really like his pick. And I think he's got enough athleticism, size, and technique to be a very good center. I need to do a little more research and watch a little more tape. I see that PFS got him rated as a 240 prospect overall. And I see a guy who gives him a couple years to be a starting center in the NFL. I don't really see why not. And then the same thing.
Guy I wasn't super high on. I hadn't watched a ton of his tape, but I had him. Starting out with the sometimes you look at whatever people have ranked, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to watch too much on this guy. And I hadn't watched as much on board, but I will say he looks like he could hold his own down at the Senior Bowl. This guy I should probably watch more on. I'm glad to hear that he was like, he was flying with he did look good. The one-on-ones I saw from him, he looked good. He might not be that, pancake getting Jackson Powers Johnson, but he held his own. He was fluid. He had great knee bend. He held his own in 1v1s. I didn't see him get beat. And he looked like a natural athlete, so I like him.
Right, yeah, that's great to hear, because it kind of confirms what I thought I saw on tape,
And that's why I like talking to you. I feel like, that's the guy definitely you watch him. I probably watch him. And I like what I saw from him. Senior Bowl, sometimes putting those together. I'll now go back and watch more tape on it and get a better kind of feel of the right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then Kingsley, I really like Kingsley. I like what I saw at the Senior Bowl. I haven't watched too much tape of his, but I really like what I saw. I think he's athletic. I think he's got a mean streak, developmental guy. I don't think he has the positional versatility because I don't think he's that big to play guard, but giving that guy a couple of years, the same thing with Bortolini, I think he might have a good starting center.
Yeah, I love it. And Kingsley, another guy who was flying under the radar, was early on to the Senior as well. So you gotta love that they have those guys under the radar as well. So the center class doesn't just ahead of me. It looks like maybe you don't even get a guy. Obviously, there's one guy that stands out that we really want, but there's a couple other options if you miss out on that guy. And then we'll move on to edge rushers. And this is a class where some people are down on the edge rusher class. But for me, I think it's a uniquely balanced class. And there's a lot of guys who they might not be top 5 picks. There's a lot of guys between that 10 and 50 range in the draft. Where you can find an edge rusher in their life. It might not be not as deep as wide receiver, but early on in the back half of the first round and most of the second round, I think there's going to be a chance if you're looking for an edge rusher, there's going to be a guy there. Like, is there any edge rushers you want to talk about specifically?
Well, just to piggyback off what you just said, I really do agree with you. I think this is a year where you've got guys who fit a 3-4 so well, and then guys who fit a 4-3 really well as well. So I think I think to start off, I think one of the best fits as far as higher in the draft would be Garrison. I'm a little bit down on him compared to other people. I don't see a top 10 pick. I do like his size. I really like a little bit more about his background, how he came from a smaller school. He really worked on his body. He is absolutely ripped, absolutely jacked up. That to me tells me there's determination. He's going to be a professional when he gets to the NFL. He's not going to be a party guy. He's just so focused on being the best he can be within his body. I think he has a pretty good first step. At times it's okay. At other times it just jumps out of the stance. So if you're scouting on upside or what he could do special, I want to see more of that because I think that's really going to be key for him to getting a lot of sacks in the NFL. I think where the Bears are going to really like him is just how much he can hold down the edge in the run game, his containment skills. So I definitely see him as a target. My only concern is really going to be, I don't see a lot of counter moves or necessarily elite hip bend, ankle flexor, getting around the corner, bending the corner. He's just not that type of a guy. And he doesn't have a ton of counter moves. There's even like a counter move he keeps doing where it's just late, slow, bend move, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, not you.
I think the thing to like about it, there's a lot there to like about. I do think he's potentially top 10 this year. I think I have him right outside my top 10. I wouldn't be against pick 9. I think there's a lot of things the Bears like. He's an elite athlete who's on Bruce Feldman's freak list. Like you said, he's probably the best edge setter when it comes to edges in this class. And I think he reminds me of Montez Sweat in some ways. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic, he's going to stop the run, and most of his constantly running. A high-effort player. They pretty much constantly all year now. If we can get in there and have Eric Washington coach him up with his hand moves and teach him a couple counter moves, we can learn from Montez Sweat as well and Javon Dexter and these guys. I think he'd be a great fit. He's probably my favorite class, right there with the option.
Yeah, I think he's a very good fit. And I think this is something that I've learned watching Cole's draft is what do they look for in whose type of defense, what are they really looking for? So when you go to a guy like Biaggiolacci, I love the guy's tape, and I just sit there going, is he really someone Foles is going to fit his defense's philosophy? He's so quick. His hand usage is so incredible. He's got counters on counters. He's just practically unblockable. But what happens in the NFL is you get a guy like this who doesn't necessarily have the physicality to contain the edge, and they're far more of pass rushers. Teams are just going to run right at him, and he is just going to get beaten up. And I'm crossing my fingers that medicals come out okay. For a guy who had a back injury, neck injury, and his one kryptonite in the NFL is that teams are just going to run right at him. Say, can you hold up with power? You know, can you contain the edge? That's where I kind of have question marks. But the quality of pass rush that he has so incredibly good that it's very, very hard for me to actually pass him in this draft.
I hear that. I think that's my same concern with him. I try to stay out of the medical concerns. At first, I dropped him way down my draft board, because I think Ryan Poles is a guy who plays it very safe when it comes to medical things like that. So that's why I initially dropped him here first. But after seeing him at the senior bowl, I think he's right there behind Hurst. I think Hurst is a better fit for us because of the defensive run and his length. They love that length and athleticism. The two is a guy who just can combo pass rush moves better. He has more pass rush moves, more counters, more in his repertoire than anybody else in the entire draft. And the way he accounts, he kind of puts them together. He's unblockable. He's a guy who's going to be an elite sack production guy. I think he'll probably get more sacks than Jared Verse, but like you said, if teams can run right at him, he'd be a fit for us, and that's where I need to Jared Verse. We'll go to my next guy. Where's Scott Robinson?
I think he's a 3-4 guy. I mean, he fits like Dallas Cowboys. You know, with the Eagles going with Fangio as the D coordinator, I think that's a perfect marriage. I think what Brandon Graham is 102 years old. I don't see him as a fit with us because I don't think he's got the height, weight, kind of a thing. He's more of the last two pass rush, quickness. I like Chop Robinson in space more, having a little bit wider of an angle to towards the quarterback. I think he's got enough speed and athleticism to cover as an outside linebacker in the NFL. I just don't see him as a fit. I do like the prospect, and I think he'll be really good on a 3-4 team.
I got those questions. That's one I'm kind of 50-50. But I see a lot of that. If he has that frame and he's really locked in, you can add to that frame and get him to 6'3", maybe 265, 70 range. I think he could be a fit. But yeah, that's a question mark for me. I don't know how Poles builds on that. But he's a guy I really like, and I hope that they like him. Like you said, there's definitely a So who are some more guys?
Okay, so guys, I really do like that. I think are really good fits. So the next guy is absolutely climbing up the board. Darius Robinson. Yeah, 6'5", he's nearly 300 pounds. He is a rock up 300 pounds. There's no fat on this guy's body. I mean, that to me is exactly what Ryan Poles wants out of his Eagle line of work. Guys, he's got the length, he can put inside, he can put outside. He's talking about sweat, being 6'6", huge wingspan. I mean, Darius Robinson, he is such a fit to me. And I know people are going to say, he's gone from the 4th or 5th round draft pick to now he's in the 2nd round. Now we're talking in the 1st. I would have no problem.
Yeah, people missed out, I think. I think that's one of those guys that hasn't been years. Well, this guy's rising up the draft board. You don't know where he was at. The Barrett draft. Barrett could have had the highest player all day. He's rising up the draft board on next year. He's a guy. It's just getting more familiar with it. You could see firsthand. Look at their first. This is I'm my eyes. Okay, Darius Robinson. Like, that's one of the best. If it wasn't for JPJ and how much we need a center, I may have been a little biased. Honestly, I think Darius Robinson had
what the fuck?
JPJ was the guy I was already on number one on my watch list when I went down there. So him standing out all week, had him take the player of the week for me. Darius Robinson right there. Absolute stud.
Yeah, I really like him. And, you know, in some of our chats and other different shows and stuff, you know, we've been talking about Darius Robinson for well over a month or even into last season. Like, man, this guy is, you know, there's some size, there's some skill, and there's some speed, and I mean, you just love what we see. And, you know, not getting national attention, but, you know, we all love what we saw, you know?
He's a guy I think he probably played so well. He's going first round.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's gonna, some people are going to be like, oh, that was a reach, but he's not. He is not a reach. Please.
Yeah, not a reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy I really like, but I do have a slight question mark, Brandon Price. I really like his game. He's got good strength. His hustle is unmatched. He's aggressive. He's got a lot of counter moves. Washington really played him all over the line, which always frustrates me a little bit because I see him having a home at defensive end and also moving inside, but they played him outside linebacker. They had him playing 3-tech and stuff. When he gets teams, I was like, I want to see you at edge versus this tackle, not guard, versus the guard. The only issue I have, and the question mark for me, is his arm length doesn't quite match his height or his size. He's being 6'4". I would expect him to have a little longer arms. He doesn't quite have that. And I know how much Brian Poles and Poles values that arm length. So even a little bit tighter in the hip, but you know, I talk about the hip strength ball, the hug and plays with a lot of violence. So I'm really on the fence with him. He might even be a guy that maybe he does move down inside of the 3-tech where his arm length isn't as much of an issue. I think we saw with Tyree Wilson from last year's draft going to the Ravens. He was, you know, a guy who I think he played a lot of edge early in the season. It wasn't until they started moving him inside and he started getting that pressure. Or maybe that's Brandon Price. I don't know. I just love watching him play. Love his aggression and violence and hustle. So for me, I'm on board with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cole goes different.
It's kind of deep in that range. He's another guy who could go late first round, but could be there well into day 2. And you never know where he's going to go, and that's kind of the biggest question right now for me is where do these guys end up? Works himself out. Brandon Dorlus, another guy who's on that list. To me, I think he's right there with Darius Robinson, a guy who's big enough to play defensive tackle. You can mold him into 3-tech if you want, but I also like him in defense.
Yeah, that's actually good to hear. I'm not really sure where to put Dorlus. In his position versatility, also there's some, you know, I think he's 6'3", but he's also, you know, a heavy 6'3". And so I So when I started to look at that length and that height that I think that we look for, I question whether the defensive end side of it is there, but moving him inside on this team makes a little more sense to me. And I've seen a lot of really explosive plays from him. And then there's some moves that we watched where, you know, I didn't see the explosion, so I don't know if it was just the matchup or maybe it was a slight injury or just consistency. So I do really like Dorlus. I question where he goes in the draft. second round, third round. You know, I trust him. So if he did get out down in the third round, to me that would be a win.
Are there any other guys that you think that you think are good?
Actually, yes. And he's a guy who I think is going really under the radar. Because he played across with Clark Robinson, and I think he's getting this narrative that he's another outside linebacker, Clark Robinson-esque guy. And that's Adisa Isaac. I love this guy. I mean, 6'4", 255, but he is a skinny 255. He's explosive off the edge. He's got incredibly long arms. He's got the bend. And to me, it's just like, this guy's framed to put on another 10, 15 pounds in the NFL. And in our team, you ask him to do that, and he maintains that bend, that quickness off the edge. I'm really high on this kid. And I'm not really sure if it's just me, or if, you know, maybe once we get close to the draft, I could see this guy being a late first round draft pick. It wouldn't surprise me.
He was on my watch list when I went down with the senior guy. I didn't watch everything. There's so much I watched out there.
Right.
The guy who, in my opinion, he didn't catch my eye and stand out like I thought he would. So I'm curious what other people can be seeing. I'm finding out what Saquon, Luke Chop always stood out there. But right down the Senior Bowl, he was definitely the guy that I was like, I gotta watch more of this guy. And I feel like he didn't stand out. You know, like a guy like Marshawn Lewis was way behind him. He caught my eye. He was winning a bunch of reps. And I expected Isaac to do that more, and I don't think I saw enough of it. But I could have missed some too. Like there's a lot of times where I was watching my receivers, I didn't see every defensive rep, so I could have missed it, but he didn't stand out.
Yeah, and that's a good insight. One thing I did hear, and I saw a rep from, is someone made this comment, and I thought it was pretty funny, is that Adisa Isaac, he had this rep against Jordan Morgan, and everybody said it looks like Isaac just moved Jordan Morgan to left guard.
I actually don't think I saw that.
But I do think Morgan is a left guard. I have a little debate with some other guys about, you know, tackle versus guard being your best position. So I just think that was kind of funny. And admittedly, I didn't hear a whole bunch on Isaac from the Senior Bowl that is, you know, fluffing up my favoritism towards him.
Yeah,
but
that's what I like. That means based off the
yeah, God, I love this one. I don't really know why I like him so much more than other people do. Maybe I just caught a lot of, you know, good games or whatever it may be. Maybe Top Robinson stealing all the double teams. And I just think, you know, I'll definitely go and do another rewatch just because I want to hammer down these guys a little more. But I really like him.
That's my favorite thing about this time. And that's something I think a lot of fans, they don't understand. Draft they don't even know how tall a guy like this is. It does matter when they get those measurables. That's when they feel like together. That's next month combine. That's something guys like me and J2K probably been doing at home for 15, 20 years, and that's why it's so good to talk to you and kind of get your thoughts on some of these prospects. I don't want to keep you much longer. Is there anyone else want to talk about Cole Joe or the other guys you think might be a perfect fit in there?
Yeah, there's one guy I'm very intrigued by. Justin Avoidance, the defensive end / 3-tech from Alabama. He's got great size, got really good athleticism. He's a bit of a tweener. I'm not sure if he's a left defensive end primarily, or he's just a pass rushing 3-tech, where he's going to fit. So when you talk about just the length and the size and athleticism that Ryan Poles and Flutes are looking for, this guy seems like a fifth-round draft pick who could have a ton of upside given his good coaching and hammering down more of one position and getting that technique, building up that technique. So I did want to shout him out. I do like him.
This guy definitely have to watch some more tape on him. That's a great call. Definitely have to I love talking to you. You want to come on again after the combine
Certainly
sometime.
in this contest, 2-score games start
Yeah,
the third
I
quarter.
think, you know, like, Combine's going to be good, time to talk, and after free agency,
Bro, what the
Ford settles a little more in Combine, and we can target a little more after free agency.
Man.
And yeah, so, man, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and having me on the show. Like you, I absolutely love this time of year. I love talking about prospects and balls and getting your opinion, and your opinion helps me reflect on mine, and I'm going to go back and watch a little more Tom Robinson, a little more Brandon Dorlin, so I can hammer down, you know, my opinion.
Selling out.
So I just really appreciate you having me on, and also just overall just you being a place that I get to go to on YouTube to talk football with people and hear your takes, and I love everything you're doing, so keep up the good work, and yeah, again, man, thanks for having me on, and everybody in the chat, you guys are awesome. I love talking to you guys. The fly-ons here is what I love to do, and hey, baby, bear down.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. And same thing, man. There's some guys after talking that I definitely got to go back to the chat, and I can't wait. For everyone in the chat, let us know if there's any guys who think we can run. That's what we're going to be doing over the next few months. Watching tape on draft guys and figuring out who we think is in the draft. Stay tuned until next time. Bear down.
Bear down.
Easy, man. Fucking pressure, bro.
Touchdown number 8 on the year. And the Lions are able to
Just
come on to that.
Future break. Up here, he has a future.
Damn.
Tomorrow, at Michigan Technological University, you know the future will be answers. The future starts now.
So easy, man.
Slash tomorrow.
You're playing games, man.
Let's go on the beat. Brought to you by Chevy.
This game, playing a game, bro. I just cannot get right, bro.
Joins us now.
Woo!
An extensive tape breakdown of Caleb Williams. You're going through every game, every snap. What have you learned so far?
Yeah, I did fascinating idea after seeing 3 years of Justin Fields and what he brings as a starter to the Bears. Let's compare now. That's what Ryan Poles has to do and make it true to the opinion. Like, there's a lot of
Don't when I'm playing this dude, man.
Honestly, before like this month, I had seen one game really start to finish. That was inside the limit, getting this ladder and moving over. It was the career. And, you know, I guess just an opinion on that. And I just looking at the highlights or him holding the Heisman Trophy. I love the beauty of this disposition is the ability to see everything, to understand every snap and what's going through his mind, whether it's a zone read and he's looking at that edge crashing down, he's looking to the side. They run this cool little triple option zone read at USC that you see over and over again. There's so many aspects of Caleb Williams' game. So really, I'm going to take it all the way back to Oklahoma. The first year, Lincoln Riley and the Sooners, and now taking it to USC. Heisman Trophy winning year 22, and then what I think a lot of people consider kind of a disappointing year in a lot of ways, given the hype and expectations. 2023 from Caleb Williams. And then the other aspect of this project I'm kind of working on is I want to talk to people who have played with Caleb Williams and coached Caleb Williams and get an understanding of what this guy's made of, what he's like as a leader, as a quarterback, and kind of decipher through a lot of the noise out there. What's fact and what's fiction. And I'm fascinated. For me, it's kind of the lead up to the NFL Combine at the end of the month where we're going to find out from Caleb Williams. We're going to hear from him directly. And yes, you're on to this space, but I'll tell you what, man, the talent there is undeniable. There's a wild play about 5 or so in everything you watch this kid. And he's got to change the talent line, so we'll see what the rest of the team. At this point, you've been probably in the NFL for considering some of the small Caleb Williams, we saw things where he had a job opportunity out in Vegas, and it looked like he was going to take it all of a sudden because he watched it. Is any of that stuff, when you start connecting the dots, does it make sense to you? Like, you've seen a lot of weird stuff in this game. Yeah, I don't put it on the stock in the injury, to be honest. Like, it's a great fit for 50 straight. They want to be able to do the third year that Las Vegas wasn't going to. That's something you have to study. a guy like Kingsbury who bounced from his alma mater and Texas Tech and then with the Cardinals for a run, and he's been looking for that stability. I think that's more what it is. That said, there's no doubt the Commanders are going to be superior to Caleb Williams. Like, anything that the quarterback's going to be interested in, they can reach the right point. It's great for the Bears. Either way, if you're keeping Justin Fields and you're trading up for number one, you got even more reps. You got a team with an aggressive quarter. It's not here. It's going to be very aggressive. Certainly the Kingsbury thing really helps their cause. Look, if you're the Bears in this spot, and I keep doing that that I used to get asked over and over about it, but what do you do with the number one pick? What quarterback are you taking? You got to get the reps. Like, you're going to get a great NFL for this straight Caleb Williams, but you got to get the quarterback in right and something more. From what I've seen, what I've gathered, and really researching and studying this kid, I think he's worth the game and pass, turn it down whatever packages on the table and draft him. I think he's that good.
Okay, so let's talk about what's possible, though, as far as the trade goes. If you take last year as an example of what's possible, considering that Caleb Williams seems to be a higher thought of prospect than what Bryce Young was last year, what did the Bears get if they decided to trade that number one spot?
I mean, I think the Bears are really starting to get those three first rounders, but you could have gotten one of those. That was really the baseline from last year's negotiation. Instead of that 2025 year, there's a kid that guy is going to make a difference. And that was a heck of a gamble. It was worth every bit of that. You walked down with the three first rounders and
What now?
two first and Max Crosby. We already took Montez Sweat from Washington, but Daniel Hall there. If it's Washington, like, they're desperate. We know it. Making four first. Like, this kid is working. Like, he's that good. And you get these quarterbacks every 5 or so years. They got clear-cut, number one guy. They've seen his generational type prospect. And that doesn't mean he's going to be a generational quarterback, but it's got to understand. We're talking this guy around the league and saying, man, what's the shape on this kid? It's real. It's a great position for the Bears to be right now. And obviously, they were able to lead this game because of they were able to win his cards last year in that deal with the Panthers. I don't even think they thought they could get the number one overall pick, but they got a heck of a lottery ticket out of that, and it's a great position to be in right now.
All right, so let's say that they stick with what you were saying at first, where you stick at number one and you draft Fields. Then maybe you're in a position to trade Justin Fields. What do you think Justin Fields gets back? Who do you think might be interested in
Still an uphill battle from here, that's for sure.
It's like to be you need that kind of value. I just want to get a person really quick. I've heard people around the league kind of confirm that situation for me. And it comes down to how they're play their cards. It comes down to what kind of market is out there for Justin Fields. Look at the teams in the middle of that first round. The teams that I'm stuck in that quarterback territory. The Steelers are right there. They were in the playoffs. They weren't really that good, and they missed that quarterback pick altogether. Like, that's a team that's going to be able to make kind of a desperate move. They might be willing to give up a first. The Raiders, we know that they need to get that quarterback thing right, and especially with the Colts, they believe in Antonio Pierce. Get some stability on the offensive side of the ball. We believe in reuniting the potential with that team. Obviously, the Falcons, right there. It's Justin Fields' hometown in Atlanta. You get a guy in that front office named Ryan Pace, who knows Justin Fields really well. Let's just say two plus three teams in bucket, for example. Let's say they're competing against each other. That's a great spot. That's what leverage. What you have in Justin Fields and create this kind of burning and that influence. So, again, all of our lives are doing these parts right. Like, in some form, I think we're going to be demonstrating and trying to get a big quality trade. And the Bears, we don't get this 29 to get 6 picks in this draft. So, you got a great trade down opportunity. And if you do trade with Justin Fields, you can get those picks back at some point. Maybe you're trading pick 9 and you get some more stockpile there. But there's opportunities to get your own picks while the draft is getting good.
I know that we don't ordinarily talk about this as far as the draft scenario goes, and it might be better for the Bears to do free agency with this particular position. What do you think of what they're going to do with the center position this year?
Darnell Wright looks like he could be a great player. I've learned enough love about Ryan Post scouting the O-line. I feel comfortable with it. If you do think that, you know, that second round pick, third, whatever it is, that AC guy is going to be, on center. I like Ryan Post's ability to scout the offensive line. It's not just because he's the former O-lineman. I like the way that he scouts and evaluates this, and the Bruce kind of in the pudding so far. I'm encouraged by that. I also like the fact that the Steelers have been dealing with a guy like Donald Wright, where they want to look at he's your starting right tackle. I think if you draft your center and he's sitting there day one as your starter, and you're doing it that way. I love that even just started that. I think they see the development of the offensive line and this full group and the continuity you have. I think the natural fit, especially the centers in the draft, I think people want to get into the draft.
Our friends over at CHGO had a very interesting conversation with Jackson about the coordinator Shane Waldron. I'd love to know, you talk to everybody. What have people told you about Shane Waldron?
I talked with the
Man, we just got one person this week.
A really good one whose opinion I respect. The guy who knows Shane Waldron was raving about this guy. Talking about the intelligence he puts into the play call, situational awareness, adaptability to players. I think that's stuff that we not talked about in the Arizona Seas. Like, he's just not getting there. We can't see he has flaws. And we can see now he's with the Raiders. He's got something different with his team and whatever it is, but I'd like to Walter fit. I think he could be what the Bears need in that spot. One thing I'd like to really work is the fact that he won't get any kind of identity offensively, where the Bears for the last 2 years have been switching their personnel, particularly the offensive line, to work with this kind of hand-hand style outside zone running. Like, you don't have to overhaul your offensive line or the way that you identify those players because of that. But it doesn't mean that Shane Waldron is who gets it. Like, it's about the intelligence and the IQ and what he brings to that spot. These McVay guys, I know there's kind of been a lot of hype about McVay tree, but like, they tend to be pretty good. Like, there's not a lot of good products in the McVay tree. And this guy is really well regarded. Everybody who looks at him has been around him, and he gets good things. I mean, understand what Gant's saying to stay. You get a lot of receivers who don't like their own teams, they're not getting the ball up too. So I think with a little bit of stuff in that case, I think Waldron could be a really good fit for the Bears.
Yeah, he did a really nice job working with Geno Smith, too. So whatever way the Bears go on the quarterback side, you probably feel comfortable that he's going to be able to get through with either one of the quarterbacks that they decide to go with. Emma, fantastic work. This man works so hard. Go check out his stuff at the670score.com. He's watching he as well. Thank you for nice enough to visit us here on Football Night Sir, thank you for the time.
Thank you, buddy.
Congrats, you finished the video. If you want to build on that success, download the NBC Sports Chicago app. It's got highlights, exclusive insights, and push alerts tailored to you. Everything you need to be a real Chicago sports fan. Download it now.
Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. Earn unlimited 2% cash back on purchases you want, like dance lessons. And doing what you need, like memory foam. That's real life right. Visit wellsfargo.com/activecash.
First to the good.
You could have been able to I know you watch a little bit of last night. That's all happened very quickly. But what are your early impressions on Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator in 2024 in the NFL, especially for this team?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit this kind of reputation of kind of being a college guy there, close, and does he really understand that, like, the air raid is the reason the air raid is all in the NFL, like, the guys are faster, and I think the thing that's happening right there with them, I watched 3 games from season 1, just to kind of get a feel for the offense and feel for the concept, because I saw an offense that is kind of has its lineage in college football. They've got wide bunches. They try to create all the space horizontally, which I think Dan did a good job of articulating in his press conference. And that does present problems for defenses. But the thing that I was really impressed about is I felt like there were some creative ways of getting that stuff. Hey, we're going to run this, 3x1 RPO 10 times in this game. Can we get to it 5 different ways? And I thought they did a good job, at least in the games that I watched, of doing it. I also thought he understood how to manipulate linebackers. Like, there was a beautiful play action
in the second game, week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers, where they run like a back power action. They pick the bubble screen and they throw it essentially an undisputed grip in the hole that they take by the linebacker, one guard, and the nickel is kind of a pass to the little smoke route. And I thought, like, this is a different way of getting to it, but this is essentially what Kyle Shanahan does. He has to manipulate secondaries with spacing, with splits, with run action, with backfield action. And I feel like, yeah, we're not relatively surprised. We're relatively surprised that there was that level of detail of what we want to action. And again, the way game is so much, compared to the Detroit of the world, compared to San Francisco, relatively. Because I do think that there is an understanding of what is important in the run game. Hey, we got to create angles for this guy. So the first game against San Francisco week 5 of 2021, they run the last out.
Oh, well.
Allocated their eligibles. They create good angles. So I'm like, we don't have receivers going in and cracking linebackers like they do in San Fran, but we've done a good job of creating horizontal defense and by extension creating angles for the second line for the offensive line. So I think it's one of those conversations I've had with guys who play from the league kind of saying, I do think that there's more innovation here than people want to give them credit for. And I do think there's a willingness to football people want to give them credit for. It's just going to look a little different, feel a little different than some of the other systems that you see around the NFL at the moment that are, and eventually but I do think that there is something there, which again got me kind of excited to say, wow, this guy knows football, and he understands kind of the basics. Manipulating space, finding easy opportunities for the quarterback, and then knowing having a really good feel of the play. Is it going to look different? Then, maybe it's a lot of things. If it looks, it's still Logan Paul
with us here on the Hoffman Show. We'll talk more later in the week on Take Command on Logan Strip and Senior Bowl. That's what's crazy. This draft is so important. We're spending time on it already. And all this stuff happens, and you were in Mobile, and then it's like, hey guys, do you guys ever want to do the Senior Bowl Defense podcast? We will. Later in the week. Right now, though, all eyes are on the press conference today, the coordinator hiring. So here's my notes here. My big takeaway is the press conference today. And the moment where I went, oh, that's why he hired Cliff Kingsbury. He talked about one of the words that he wants to describe as and that's going to involve a first shutdown. And then when you asked about the roster, he's like, I love the interior of the D-line, the really important offensive and the receiver position is really important too. I like those guys in great matchups. Like we need to use those as well. And I think about problems last year offensively, especially I think of Terry's frustration. He straight up in post-game press conferences was like, we need to pull the football down the field more. Like, just give me a chance. And to me, if I'm getting Quinn and I got like Terry, who's great contested catch, free speed, and is not being used. And I look at this draft and there's a bunch of big X receivers, guys that can get down the field. You have Jahan Dotson here, basically guy. De'Ami Brown is under contract for a 4-3 guy. Like the ability to get the ball down the field and then not do the last couple of years because you also missed the prime. And if nothing else, all the other stuff you said about Cliff, his run game, his Cliff didn't have true. Cliff Kingsbury is going to sling the football down the field. Like there's going to be some deep shots available. So to me, that's where that all came together. And I'm curious, film study and what you hear around the league, that vertical element to the passing game fits with some personnel this year, and if that ties to any of the top quarterbacks in this draft and their skill sets.
Yeah, well, I think, you bring up a great point. There's certain guys that certain offensive play callers can tell with, like, their home bases, like, where they feel really comfortable. Like, if they're kind of in a little bit of a rut, like, what's the call they're going to. So, like, the classic Phil Callahan example is he's running 12 or 13 duo. Like, that's home base, and that's where he feels most secure. And you can tell Cliff feels most secure in the gun. We're spread out. We've got one back in the backfield, and we've got 4 wide out that we are trying to get down the field, you know, in a drop back passing scenario. So don't get it twisted. Like, his offense has evolved and he's changed, but at his core, like, he's a pass game guy who wants to be innovative in that space. So I definitely agree. I think the one thing that Dan said, which I think is really important to kind of hear for football fans at home, is this idea that just understanding offense on the same time creates space. So you got, you know, space players, you want to maximize their opportunities. You mentioned Terry, you mentioned John, obviously on the ground under contract, right? But I think that's one thing. And also, just defenses that give them a hard time. And that's oftentimes, like you see, like Kyle finds offense, finds defensive structures, and give him all the time to hire that. I think when I was in San Francisco, we were prepping for games in the division. I talked to the defensive coordinator, and I was like, what's the hardest defense in the division to prep for? He's like, there we go. Because of what they do, they go hurry up, they have the wide punches, they get these guys out there quick, they run. I think we found something that gives defensive coordinators a really hard time. I want that here. Because I think it's really what, like you said. You know, he does all this innovative stuff there. They want to put the football on the field, but I think the core in it of the value add is understanding space and understanding space players, and understanding how to get them the ball. So I think that's something that I think is really going to be exciting a lot. From a football innovation standpoint, it's not as quick get that space with the players that we have here watching and maximize those skills.
So that brings us to, I would say, look forward to and back to the quarterback discussion, because he had Kyler in Arizona that he was building around, and, you know, he's in gun all the time. Cliff, you know, offensive basically. I wonder how much that had to do with Kyler, where he did use this quite a bit, and that was kind of a solution to take away some of the deficiencies of being in gun all the time. And we talked about last year how gun runs was 90% of the time going the opposite side of the some of these other names, angle runs that are really limiting from gun. And I think you did a good job earlier of explaining how Cliff does deal with some of that from an angle standpoint, but, you know, this can be really helpful in dealing with some of these deficiencies, but also, like, not putting Kyler Murray as a center piece too late. And so I do wonder if, you know, Jaden Daniels, a Caleb Williams average is bigger than average size quarterback. Obviously, Trey Hayes, you know, typical size quarterback. Like, I wonder, does this system have the ability to go under center? And could that then even plug some more holes in it where some of the play action stuff becomes a bigger part, and some of these things that would seem to be the next evolution for a Kingsbury offense if he chooses to go?
No, I think that's a really good question, and I do think one of the things that I came out of the film study is basically saying this guy understands some of this offensive limitations and has grown the offense. And so I do think that is something that gets me kind of excited. In addition to some other things, right? Obviously, but in terms of excitement, like, one of the things that struck me is, like, he's able to kind of tailor-made positions and opportunities for guys. He understands now. Like, Danny put in his press conference talked about how it's his job to find the player to go and, you know, maximize that in the context of the defense. And I felt like there were shades of that with Cliff, right? Hey, we got DeAndre Hopkins. He's a great contested catch guy. Let's give him these opportunities, you know? We've got Rondell Moore there, who's a great satellite state player. Let's get him those touches in satellite state. And I'm just trying to make sure that early. Now that maybe a Hall of Famer, let's find a way to maximize those guys. And, you know, there were times on it where I was under center of the offense. But again, like you said, you wouldn't think that's something he would do because he is so small. But he used that tool to help maximize the offense for the rest of the playmakers, right? They obviously had Tyler Johnson runner. They found ways to get him in to design quarterback run games to maximize what they do offensively. So I just think there's a lot there in terms of him being somewhat flexible, not very fully to his scheme, because I think that's really what you're hiring here is a guy that has offensive foresight, an offensive innovation in his blood. And so that was kind of cool from that 2021 page. He's just a guy who's wanted to say, hey, I don't have all these answers. Like, let's see if I can find different opportunities to put these guys in better positions to be successful. That made me feel better about all the, you know, like, the offense is somewhat tailor-made and kind of fixed fit the skill sets of the guys at the top of the draft. So, if there is an opportunity to take one of those guys, I think he's gonna maximize those guys. And I don't think it's coincidence that he's got a history of helping quarterbacks develop, because he understands, understands when to take shots, when to deleverage the position. Now, that deleveraging looks a little bit different, but he understands that at a high level. He can maximize all three of those guys.
Here on the Hoffman Show.
Oh, boy.
Podcast. Your off-season home for
Another terrible game versus the Lions.
Giving that to you twice a week. Although some people, Logan, will be hearing this.
I think I would have been fired
now, because we're going to take this interview and put it in the take
2 years in a row.
We're done talking. So if you're listening to
this is not fun at all.
All right, you mentioned there are
this is supposed to be stress-free.
And I certainly.
This is supposed to be a getaway.
And you probably have some more detail on some of them with you.
Welcome to hell.
This one's from the highest of levels is collapse in Arizona every single season he was there. There was good seasons, middling seasons.
One of these days.
One thing that was consistent was bad.
One of these days, I guess.
Murray and bad Decembers for the Arizona.
One of these years, somebody's going to say, one of these years.
The results he would have at Texas Tech.
One of these years.
When he was in Lubbock, and then things would go sideways by the end. And
back to the drawing board.
His alma mater says thank you very much after, 5-6 years of him being there. And I think some of that has to do with the tempo, and teams got to figure it out.
Back to the drawing board.
Adjustment throughout the season. What are the
game, bro.
things that he needs